Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Final Girl Support Group, written by Grady Hendrix. It's a horror novel. It's in the vein of movies like Scream, stories that play on horror tropes, and also kind of bring to light those tropes and, in a way, poke fun at them almost tongue-in-cheek in some parts in the story. So I had that feel when I read this book. It doesn't have the finesse of Scream now, in my opinion, so even though it's a really good read and I did enjoy this a lot, I liked a bit of finesse. But it's still a great book. I enjoyed it very much, and it makes me want to read more books from the same author. The story focuses on a group of women and their final girls in mass killings. So they're women who survived mass killings and who are the only survivors in these cases. And they have a support group. They all move to the same kind of area, and they meet once a week, I think, in a support group. And there's a therapist who manages this group, runs it, and takes care of them. All the women in this group are very different, and their experiences have shaped them differently. And that was quite fascinating as well, because their differences cause much tension in this group, and at times they just don't get along. And you start to wonder, are they going to survive at the end, because they just can't seem to get along at all. And to get through this, you just get the impression they're going to have to work together. And if they can't do that, they're all going to die, because somebody is out to get them. And it just seems that whoever's out to get them has been planning this for some time. And the women in this group are, behind the eight ball from the very start. So they're in trouble from the very start, and they know it, but they can't get along with each other. We have Lynette, who's our main character, our main focus in the book. She seems very paranoid, and she seems obsessed with wanting the group to stay together, because the people in the group want to split it apart now. They're sick of each other, but she seems to be the only one wanting to keep the group together. We have Marilyn. Marilyn married money, so she got through this traumatic experience, and to try to forget about it, she moved somewhere else and married into money. So now she just supports different causes, and she's got a big house, a lot of security, so she feels safe as well with that money and that power. We have Danny, who moved to a ranch, and an isolated ranch, nobody around really, so she feels safe there, secure, even though she's isolated. We have Heather. Heather turned to alcohol and drugs to get to beat her problems from her traumatic experience. So that's the only girl, I think, in the group who did turn to alcohol or drugs. Julia took to education and got a few degrees, and one of them's a law degree, I think, and she uses that to try to keep the person who tried to kill her in jail. Adrian used her influence and her experience to start a support group of her own, a kind of organisation to help women who have been traumatised by different events. She ended up buying the property where she survived her experience, and she turned that into a refuge of sorts for women. That was interesting as well, because some of these women seem to have used their experience and created very positive things. Some women haven't. And so I found it fascinating that the author made each of these women so different, and it just made each of them feel so real. The psychologist helping them is Dr. Carroll, and at times you suspect Dr. Carroll maybe being the killer in this book, because she seems obsessed with these women. Why is she always helping them? What does she get out of helping these women? Because her whole life, her whole practice seems focused around final girls, women that have survived mass killings. Is she trying to get fame? Is she going to write books about them all? What does she get out of doing it? And I just started to suspect her in this book as well. And it's interesting because you don't know who the real culprits are until almost the very end, those last few scenes, last few chapters. And that was just a great way the author wrote this book, because the author didn't give anything away. It keeps you guessing, and I suspected different people at different stages of this book. I even suspected some of the final girls themselves, and I thought it was great that the author made me keep guessing and didn't give anything away. This book is a fast-paced roller coaster. We have a brief introduction in the story, just to get to meet all the characters, but then the action just goes into overdrive, and it doesn't let go. It's fast all the way through, and I just love that because it just keeps the tension, suspense all happening in this book. And you just get chills from this book as well, because while you're trying to work out who the killer is, people are being attacked, some people are being killed, some people are just surviving near-death experiences, and that's just so fascinating in this book. There are little parts in the plot that, when they're too tongue-in-cheek, and it's like that finesse that Scream did for me, that it does decrease the tension and suspense in the novel a little bit. But on the whole, this is a very well written, very well constructed book, and I get the impression that the author plotted this very carefully. It doesn't feel like there are any parts in the book that were tacked on. There were, half-thought add-ons here and there. This feels very well plotted, very well planned, and I enjoyed this read very much. Lynette is the final girl that this book focuses on the most. I like this character a lot. She seems very real. Her flaws make her seem real, because her flaws make her make mistakes, and those mistakes sometimes have big consequences for her and other people. And I like that, because we don't have a perfect character. We have a character that makes mistakes, a character that thinks she's doing the right thing all the time, but sometimes she's not. And that just makes her seem lifelike, very real, and I even started to feel like what happened to her could be real. And that just is a sign of a great character and great writing. Heather, who's another one of our final girls, she's another good character, and she does seem very real. And I like this character because she seems so different to the other final girls. She's gone a different direction altogether, getting hooked on drugs and alcohol. That's how she copes with everything. And the other girls didn't go that way. They went a more positive route after their experience. But Heather has this wit and this sarcasm and this cynicism, and sometimes not cruelty, but almost cruelty coming through with how she acts and what she does. And she doesn't seem to care either. She acts herself, she doesn't care about other people sometimes in this story. She seems a little bit self-centered and selfish, but she just seems very real as well. And you just picture her in this story, and she just seems like a very well-rounded, well-crafted character, and very real. Chrissy. Now, Chrissy is not one of our final girls in the group. I think she was a final girl at one stage, but she left the group. But she's not a perfect character, so she's one of the characters in the story that I like the least, and just didn't seem as well crafted, well developed. And the reason for that is she feels a bit hammy, feels a bit too forced and overdone. And this is where some of the finesse is not there in the story. There are certain scenes with her in the story, not many, just some, and she just comes across as not too real. I didn't get a sense that this character could be real like I did with the other characters. That was a bit of a shame, because this character is meant to be written as almost a villain, someone sitting on the fence, and I get the impression that if this character had more care taken with her, it would have been just a much better character in this story, and that sinister feel would have been much stronger. I really enjoyed this story a lot. I thought the whole concept of it, the plot, the tension, the action, the pace, the characters, for the very most part of this book, were all great. I rate it a 4.5 out of 5. There are just little things in this story that knocked it down half a star for me, but this is just a great story, and I want to read everything this author's written. I hope there's a sequel to this story. I get the feeling there could be, because at the ending it seems to be the idea that it could be a sequel. I'm hoping there could be, because I'd love to see these characters again in another story. And I love the fact that if there is a sequel, it kind of plays into that final girl theme as well. These characters have survived something that's traumatic again, but then in a sequel, someone else is coming after them, or maybe the same people, who knows. But I love the fact that there could be a sequel. I'm hoping there is a sequel to this story at some stage. I do review other horror novels on my channel. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a horror playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.